It's Ports a Call waterfront dining, award-winning service and cuisine with a view of the dynamic LA harbor from every seat. For reservations and directions, visit portsacalldining.com or call 310-833-3553.
Welcome. You're listening to Backchat Radio for the Halloween Obsessed with freaky hosts Linda Palmer and Rae Davis.
Hello there. I am Linda Palmer, and I'm a filmmaker, writer, director, producer.
And I'm Rae Davis, from owner-operator of Calaveras Coffin Company.
Yes. And how did we meet, Rae?
Well, Linda, let's see. Think back. We met a few years ago when you had just finished the short, Our Father, and I came down to watch the premiere, and then we discovered in the meantime that we had quite a love for Halloween.
Yes, we do. We have an insane love for Halloween.
I would say so.
I would say we're obsessed.
I'd say we're obsessed. Yeah.
Which leads us to one of our topics about what kind of Halloween fan are you?
What kind of fan are you? And we're talking about, are you the 365 fan, meaning, all the time, Halloween, all the time, every day of the year? What kind of fan are you? And I know what kind of fan you are, Linda.
I'm an insane 365 fan. This is how bad it is, people. So I got married on Halloween. I was corpse bride. My husband was corpse groom. We had like 100 people in our house. This is the second time we had some insane event at our house, Halloween themed. The first one was when we made my movie, Halloween Party. Oops, sorry. Halloween Party. Which we're selling for the rest of our lives. So that's why I bring it up, because it's 365. We are constantly peddling that.
Well, and with our business, I'd have to say we're probably the same, because we're building coffins pretty much all year long. And yes, people, we're building coffins not to be buried in, but for your home, decorative coffins to maybe set out some of your decor, maybe use for a bookcase. But in my house, our coffin's in our dining room, 365.
Yes, it is. And is that the same coffin that's in your bedroom?
That was the same coffin in the spare bedroom. It is now in the dining room with the Halloween Village in it. So it's kind of an inspiration piece for everything we do.
Yeah, I stayed at Ray's house once, and there was a coffin in that bedroom. It was a little strange.
Yeah, but not for you, Linda. It wasn't all that strange.
Yeah, it was standing up, and, I lay down. So
Yeah,
I wasn't too worried.
Yeah, we
about
weren't making you sleep in it or anything.
Although, no, just kidding.
Although you might.
Well, you know what? There's a lot of really fun Halloween things out there. I mean, I think the thing about being obsessed is you think about Halloween all the time. Like it's really a part of your life. You love every part of Halloween, every part, like the season, the decor, all sorts of things, which is really kind of what our show's about. We talk a little bit about each topic that means a lot to us. Like, for instance, events. We love Halloween events. If there's anything going on Halloween-wise, we want to be there, which this year we went to the Halloween Expo in New Orleans.
We did early this year, and that was just an incredible experience.
That was awesome.
It was.
And then just this past weekend we went to...
Yes, Scare LA in Pasadena. What an event.
That was wild. The stuff that we saw there, not only people dressed up in all these crazy costumes, but they had bands and parties and all kinds of, like, Elvira was there. She was hosting it.
Yeah,
the
she
Mistress
sure was.
of the Dark.
Yes.
And
so was Lisa Loring, who used to play Wednesday on The Addams Family.
there were quite a few people doing signings and just seeing their fans. It was really quite an event. Plus, obviously, all the haunts,
Yes.
that kind of stuff. But we'll get into Scare LA
We
another
will.
time.
We'll talk about that a little more.
That was just a little bit about events. And then another thing that we like to talk about and sort of design and wear are costumes.
Costumes, absolutely. Everything from what you buy and what you might make at home out of things that, I don't know, something mundane, say a box around
Like a
your house. Like
box.
a box. We'll be talking about that a little more, about what you can do with a box.
Yes. and quite honestly, I mean, for me, I got into Halloween when I was in high school, and my adopted mom, she really encouraged us to be very crafty. So we didn't buy a lot of our costumes. We always made our costumes. And I just find that the sort of handcrafted costumes are often the most creative.
Absolutely, because the sky's the limit.
Yeah.
You're not bound by anything that you can't really, do something with. So
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely homemade costumes when you have the time and get your creative juices flowing. It's probably the best way to go.
Yeah. Another of our topics that we discuss is decor. Mm-hmm. Ray is huge on decor. Well, we're both huge on decor, but she is a little more classic decor, and we're a little more, like the freaky, frightful decor.
Exactly. And that's something we'll probably be talking about too with maybe some of our listeners and our callers about what kind of Halloween haunter are you? Are you the more classic like I tend to be? I don't get much into the horror and that kind of thing. I tend to be more, looking at things like this and coffins we'll get into. A little bit more like that than the real heavy-duty horror that a lot of people are in. And I know that you have a lot of fun with yours, and you're very eclectic in your decorating.
Yeah, ours is not necessarily the scary decor.
Right.
Ours is much more the fun, silly, goofy kind of decor. Although, being a 365er, we do tend to leave our spider webs up a little longer than normal.
Yeah, but we can find your house that way.
That's true.
It's
It's all lit up.
follow the web.
We always say, we're at the house that has the giant web between the palm tree and the telephone
That's
pole.
right. So it's always been easy to find your house. That's for sure.
That's true. What else are we talking about?
Well, we're going to talk a little bit about history of Halloween as we go through, because it's something interesting. I think that our listeners will find that where Halloween actually began and how did the U.S. ended up adopting such a holiday that has grown and grown and grown over the years. I think we've surpassed a lot of the other countries in that.
Yeah, it is so weird to think that Halloween actually didn't start here, because actually the U.S. is where there are the most Halloween fans.
I think so. Yeah.
There's also a lot in Mexico because of Day of the Dead.
True. Even though the two things are absolutely separate, but they've seemed to kind of commingle over the years and have, kind of stepped into one another. So
We have a huge following in Mexico for Halloween party. And I have to thank all of our, Spanish and Hispanic listeners
yes,
and fans.
absolutely. Well, I found that out, by the way. I think on Facebook when you were advertising our page on Halloween party, and suddenly I realized, yes, you sure do, because they've come over to us. So I really appreciate that.
Awesome.
That's been awesome. Yay.
And of course, you can't not talk about food and partying.
You cannot, because Halloween has become all about the party for me, for you, and millions of other people out there.
And it's a different kind of party. There's all kinds of parties you can go to.
Oh.
You can go to, the scary kind of haunted house sort of parties, or you can go to like the fun, get drunk, sexy parties.
Yep.
Or you can go to like,
Mine tends to be more almost of the dinner party, social kind of Halloween party.
Yeah.
And they're all fun.
I actually like that one. One time for my daughter, Brooklyn, I had her friends over and we had this long table and we had a skeleton in the middle of it and all the food was laid out in the skeleton. And the girls, they had these goblets and blood was around the table. It was awesome.
And
they loved it.
Well, and it comes down to, like every party, it comes down to the food. And with us each year, long ago, we decided to have our parties catered because it was becoming too much of a stress to try to do it all. And I'm usually one of those people that I am at the last minute still finishing my decorating, even though I start in September.
Even though it's
I'm
up,
down to,
even though it's up all year long.
pretty much some of it is. And I am that last minute person, and then it was always a stress about the food. So several years ago, we looked into having one of our local restaurants in Murphy's cater for us and see what that was going to be like. So ever since, we've done that, and we try to pair the theme of our food with basically the theme of our parties, and that's been a lot of fun. Lots of fun.
You know what? That's another thing. I mean, when you think about it, you think, well, isn't Halloween the theme? Not necessarily.
No.
You know, there's so many different themes. You can do witch themes, ghost themes, you know, monster themes, whatever it
Absolutely.
is. You have a great yard off the side of your house that almost is a natural, spooky potential graveyard.
Yeah,
which-
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, we've kind of grown that over the years, even though the kids are grown and out of the house, and sadly we don't have many young children in the neighborhood anymore. So as much as I still go out for Halloween, we hardly have any trick or treaters, which is very sad.
Yes, but you know that all your neighbors appreciate your decorating.
They do, and I found out a few years ago that they pay attention to certain things I wasn't sure, like Halloween night, I start blaring the soundtrack of The Nightmare Before Christmas from the garage. And there was a year, I think the weather wasn't too good, and I decided, it stopped playing, and I wasn't going to go back out and start it over. Well, a few days later, one of the neighbors said, "What happened to the music?" They had come by and couldn't hear it anymore, and it's like, okay.
Yeah, they were sad. Well, we blare our soundtrack from our movie.
Yes, and it's a great
Shameless
one.
plug again.
Listen, let
Oh,
me
my
tell you,
God.
listeners.
This is such an awesome soundtrack, Halloween party soundtrack. One of our songs in our movie was an Oscar contender the year that Adele won for Skyfall. It's called Voodoo, written by C.J. Watson and Bruce Michael Miller, and it is an amazing song. So I highly suggest adding this to your mix. It's a great dance mix,
Yeah.
and also it's kind of like pop music, but then a lot of classic rock and roll too. But we're about ready to wind down, and we did have another category, which is going to be our spooky story minute.
That's
every episode,
right.
And since this is our first episode that we're doing, Ray and I are going to give a spooky story each to give you an idea, maybe to inspire you. And then from now on, we're going to ask our callers to call in, or we'll call you, and you tell us your spooky story. So you go first.
Okay, well, many years ago in Calaveras County, which I still live, I grew up in a tiny, tiny town. And there was a group of us friends from the time we were, 11, 12 years old. And we had this little cabin that we could hang out in on the property. And my friend Karen had her jukebox in there. She had a full-size jukebox, and of course we spent all our money on records and used to hang around this cabin. Well, it got to the point where odd things started happening, Linda. We would go in and all the lights would be out in the cabin, and then suddenly they would come on their own, and then they'd go off on their own at any given time. And there was no power outage. We never did figure out what was going on. But the weirder part about this is that the jukebox would come on its own on one song all the time when that happened.
What was the song?
Well, believe it or not, and this...
Was it Voodoo?
No, it was the flip side of Spirit in the Sky, the flip side. And it was called Chester Bought Himself a Milk Cow. It was actually called Milk Cow.
Oh my goodness, that's
And
hilarious.
it scared, we're 11, 12, 13 years old, and would scare us silly, especially when it would come on in the middle of the night when we were in
Wow.
there. So many times we found ourselves actually running and screaming and going back to our houses.
It's amazing the energies and spirits around us.
Yeah, we sure felt it all the time.
Yeah, well, my story, real quick, is when we were kids, we used to go hang out at our grandma's house. And if we were spending the night, she had this room that had an attic off of it. And so the door would always open because of the, draft and everything.
Wow.
So all of us would usually put something in front of the door, like a, dresser or a bed, whatever. So one time we were over there and we were playing with a Ouija board, having some fun with that Ouija board. And all of a sudden, the door started going, ch-ch-ch-ch, and it started like slamming against, I think it was a dresser at the time. And all of us kids were like, "Wah!" We got ran out of the room. And then our grandma's like, "Well, quit playing with the Ouija board."
Yes, maybe that needs
That's
to
no
be put
fun.
away.
Anyway, that's our show. That's our first show. That's what we're going to be up to. Basically, we'd love to thank our producer, Mike Stark. We'd love to thank LA radio sessions, and Mark Cardone, who produced our little intro, Kelly Zerbies, who were playing Boom Boom from Kelly's Lot, and all of our callers that we're going to have in the future.
Absolutely. We look forward to the next one. Cheers, Linda, for the future episodes of Bat Chat. Yay!
Yay!